Welcome again, everyone. My name is Jessica Desarden. I am a program coordinator in the Office of Community Engagement. We are thrilled to be back for the March edition of the C Spotlight series. I'd like to begin with a statement from the Office of Community Engagement. We wish to acknowledge the Indigenous people who are past and present stewards of the land on which we pursue our just cause of improving health for all. I'd also like to recognize MCW's values: caring, collaborative, curiosity, inclusive, integrity, and respect. These values guide us in all our endeavors. It is our goal and expectation that the entire session, including the chat interactions, will reflect these shared values. Please note this session is being recorded, and please be sure you remain on mute throughout the presentation. We encourage everyone to use the chat bar to share comments or questions for our guests throughout the session. We will monitor the chat and address questions and comments accordingly. This monthly series features community partners and the important work they are doing. We highlight their goals, motivations, and accomplishments, and the ways they have partnered with people and programs at the Medical College of Wisconsin. At this time, I would like to introduce our Senior Associate Dean for Community Engagement, Dr. Stacy Young, who will say a few words about our featured guest. Dr. Young?
Thanks, Jessica. Good afternoon, everyone. I have the honor to introduce today's featured guests, Lamont Davis and L'quisha Briggs. Mr. Davis is the executive director of the Milwaukee Community Land Trust, where he leads efforts to expand permanently affordable home ownership. His work focuses on creating pathways to home ownership for families historically excluded from traditional housing markets, while ensuring affordability is preserved for future generations. Ms. Briggs serves as the Homeownership Manager at Milwaukee Community Land Trust, where she supports first-time homebuyers, develops stewardship systems for long-term affordability, and collaborates with lenders, developers, and community partners to expand equitable homeownership opportunities. Her approach is both systems focused and community driven, balancing regulatory compliance with practical pathways that help families successfully move from renting to owning. Thank you, Lamont and L'quisha, for being our featured guests today. I would also like to welcome today's facilitator, Courtney Jankowski. Ms. Jankowski is a research program manager in the Institute for Health and Humanity here at the Medical College of Wisconsin, where she leads community-engaged research across environmental health, racial health disparities, housing, cancer, and global health. Courtney collaborates with community partners at every stage of the research process to ensure research is transparent, inclusive, and responsive to community priorities. Thank you, Courtney, for being our facilitator today. I now turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Dr. Young, for that warm welcome. And thanks everyone at the Office of Community Engagement for putting this together and for welcoming our community partners into the conversation today. So I'm really excited to be here with Lamont and L'quisha and to get the word out about the incredible work that they've been doing in Milwaukee. Maybe you've heard of MCLT, maybe you haven't yet. So I'm excited to share what they've been working on. And also I'm just excited to have a conversation with them and to have you all join our conversation. Whenever I talk to Lamont and L'quisha, every couple weeks when we have some team meetings, I always am left feeling inspired and just motivated to continue doing this work. So I'm definitely excited for today. A little background here. I'm currently working with MCLT, the Milwaukee Community Land Trust, on an AHW funded project led by Dr. Kirsten Beyer here in the Institute for Health and Humanity. And this project looks at the community land trust model and how it impacts individual and community health. As you may know, homeownership can have many powerful health benefits, things like stability, financial security, stronger community connections and cohesion. Lamont and L'quisha will get into this further. But we also know that the reality is that the barrier to home ownership, specifically in Milwaukee, as we know as well, remains incredibly high for so many families. And so that's what we're talking about today. And that's the challenge that Lamont and L'quisha have been working really effortlessly and tirelessly to address throughout their careers. So before we jump into questions, I do want to mention that we are going to have some slides in the beginning, just to give a little more information about what the Community Land Trust model is. It may be a new concept to folks. We want to make sure that we give some background there, and then we'll get into some question and answer and discussion with the group. So please jump in the chat at any time if you have questions or thoughts throughout. So with that, Lamont and LaQuisha, I'd love to turn it over to you, and you can go ahead and start by introducing yourselves and sharing a little bit about your backgrounds and what brought you to this work.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. And I'm excited to be here with you all and just sharing what we do in our work and just giving you some more insight into the day to day. As Miss Young stated, I am the homeownership manager for the Milwaukee Community Land Trust. My background is in counseling. And so while I am so passionate about this work, it's because I've seen so many families that have struggled to get into homeownership at an affordable cost and to be able to have the opportunity to have a good quality home. And so doing that work of counseling has pushed me into this position that I'm in now to be able to create permanently affordable homeownership opportunities. And so I'm very passionate about it because it allowed me to create these opportunities for people that typically would not have them. And so that's just a little bit of background about me. I will pass it over to Lamont so he can introduce himself.
Thank you, LaQuisha. And thank you all who are on the call. We really appreciate the time to have some thought partnership working with folks that we know appreciate this work. It's kind of like preaching to the choir sometimes when we go in these audience, but we really just appreciate Dr. Jankowski and Dr. Beyer for even getting us to this stage. I'm Lamont Davis, Executive Director. I've been involved in nonprofit management for about 30 years here in Milwaukee, across the spectrum from delivering services like energy assistance and weatherization to helping people fix their homes and age in place in their homes. And I joined the Land Trust in October 2021 because I was just blown away about the permanent affordability, and we'll get into that. But this is just a really great opportunity to kind of reshape the landscape of what's equitable and what's fair in Milwaukee. And we feel like the Land Trust is the perfect vehicle to get that done. So thank you all for joining us.
Okay, I think we can get the slides running, Jai, if you
So just getting started, we just wanted to try to work with thought partners like you all, because one of the things that we really tried to do with this model is partner with institutional organizations like healthcare facilities, academia, research organizations, because what we want is we want to prove that this model really works. We also want to prove that it's equitable and the right thing to do. Milwaukee has such a long history of racial discrimination, redlining, and many other issues that have prevented people from color of getting into home ownership. And we know that home ownership is one of those things that it's a social determinant of health. If you have safe, healthy homes, then likely you can tackle those health outcomes. And that's the case that we're looking to make with our model with you all today. Next slide. So the Milwaukee Community Land Trust was founded in 2017. It was founded by a volunteer board. Actually, the founder was a college student at the time in UWM, getting a social work degree, and he wanted to make sure that there was an affordable housing option for his peers and his generation. He's still involved to this day in various capacities. But for about 4 years, there wasn't a whole lot that we were able to do. And then we got a board president who really went out there and like gangbusters. And what he did is he found us funding to bring in a nationally renowned consultant who helped us with all of our organizational things, getting our bylaws together, finalizing the ground lease document that we use, really just getting us off the ground. And then I was recruited and I came aboard in October 2021. Since that time, we've been busy. We've had multiple partnerships. It's resulted in 9 affordable homes with 4 units being sold this month. So hopefully we'll be at 13 units by the end of the month. My vision is that at some point we'll be at around 300 units. Land trusts, generally when they get to around 50 homes, they're considered a established land trust. So we're still in the emerging stage of land trust development. So we're always looking for partnerships and ways to work with people. A third of our board is always going to be the residents that we serve. So we're really happy to have their perspective since we've been able to close some of these units. We closed our first units in 2023, May 2023 to be exact. And we've been just looking forward to making different partnerships. One of the strengths of this program is called stewardship. And I'll put it in context and just say that during the last housing recession, land trust homeowners were 10 times least likely to go into foreclosure. And that's because of the concept of stewardship, where we just wrap around our homeowners. We help them with anything that they need. If they need resources, if they need someone to talk to, if they have a gutter that blows off their house in this last windstorm, we're there to help them put the pieces back together. And it's one of the most enjoyable features of the land trust model is serving people and making sure people are safe in their place of residence. Next slide. So when you look at a community land trust, a basic definition of a land trust is what you see on the screen. We're a nonprofit corporation. We hold the land on behalf of the community. So when the buyer buys the house, the improvements, we retain title to the land. Currently, we're dealing with residential properties, but the land trust has many variations. We can buy community serving structures that could be like a business incubator. We could do training inside of that structure, or it could just be a place for people to gather and meet. But the overall goal is that we're looking to hold land for the benefit of the community. Next slide. Land trusts were started around 55 years ago. A lot of the land trusts, the land trust is not a new concept, but the community part of land trust is what's new. In the 60s, during the civil rights movement, there was a response by a group called New Communities. And what New Communities wanted to do is they wanted to have black farmers in Georgia be able to farm land and not be discriminated against. And so what they did is they bought some plots of land and then they leased the land out to farmers. So farmers didn't have to go and acquire 20 acres. They could have just leased the 1 acre that they needed to do the work that they were able to do. And then around in the 80s, the model was co-opted by a community group to be a benefit for the community. And their first work was really on acquiring blighted properties and turning that blighted property into home ownership opportunities. And so now, 55 years later, since that evolution of the community model, there is over 300 land trusts in the U.S. and Canada and many more throughout the world. It's in India, it's in England, it's all over the world. We're really excited. When I joined in 2021, there was about 225 land trusts. Here in Wisconsin, we have 5 land trust organizations and another 4 or so groups who are looking to become land trusts. So pay attention to the model. I think we're going to see tremendous growth in this model as we look forward over the next few years. Next slide. And, you know, what we're really trying to do, although we want the land to be held for the community benefit, we recognize that low to moderate buyers, they have a gap on what they can afford and what's actually available out here in the market. L'quisha will go through some of that later about that affordability, but it's nothing new to most of us. We know people who earn 6 figures and still can't get into home ownership. And so the land trust specifically addresses that affordability gap. Next slide. And this is a visual graphic for you to understand the magnitude of the problem. If you look at the blue line in the middle, median sale prices of homes at 2020, they were around 150,000. Well, in Milwaukee, our black and brown households usually earn somewhere between 30 and 50,000, with median income being around $40,000. They only can afford a $75,000 home. And so that's why the land trust is here, is to bridge that affordability gap and be able to provide that ability for people to get into home ownership. Next slide. Oh, I'll turn it over to L'quisha.
Yes. Hello, everyone. So this slide is how does the model actually work? So now you kind of know what the model is and how do we actually put it into practice. So first we acquire or rehabilitate homes. That means we're either purchasing existing properties that may need repairs or supporting new construction units. Ensuring that they're brought up in good quality, that they're livable standards before they're being sold to the homeowners. Now, we don't do this work alone, of course. Teamwork makes the dream work. Okay, so we partner with nonprofit organizations, housing developers, sometimes private developers, and these partnerships allow us to scale our impact and to bring more affordable home ownership opportunities into the community. And then, most importantly, I know Lamont mentioned it briefly earlier in the slides, but our focus long-term is stewardship. So our relationship with our homeowners, it doesn't end at closing. So we stay connected with them. We provide them with support and resources and guidance to just make sure that long-term that they have housing stability and that to preserve that affordability for the future generations. Next slide. So this slide is basically mapping out how we work in steps. So we start by bringing together funding, public, private sources to acquire the land or develop or rehab homes. The key difference is that the land trust keeps ownership of the land, as stated in the previous slide, while the homeowner purchases the home at a below market price. And so this model works as like a cycle. And so first the buyer purchases the home using subsidies and agrees to a resale term through a 99-year renewable ground lease. And so what's so important about these subsidies is usually when you're using subsidies in other transactions, the homeowner is required to live in the home for a certain amount of time. And once that time is up, the homeowner then typically sells the home, which goes to like an investor or someone that is not going to take pride in the owner occupied and somebody that's actually from the community. So this model ensures that those original subsidies are going to stay with the home and also get passed down to the next buyer. Okay, and so the homeowner is able to build equity over time, like any other traditional homeownership opportunity. And if they decide to sell the home, there's a resale formula that keeps the home affordable for the next buyer while still allowing that homeowner to earn appreciation. So those original subsidies, like I stated before, that we put into the home are reused and are creating long-term affordability for generations to come, which is important. And so at the end of the day, this model is about home ownership, making it possible now and keeping it possible moving forward in the future. Next slide. Okay, so this is an actual or a demonstration of what affordability actually looks like within the community land trust model. So what you're seeing are real examples of home prices, estimated monthly payments, and what income is needed to sustainably afford these homes that we're selling. So as an example in this that we're showing you right here, a home price at about $57,000 has an estimated monthly payment of about $810, which aligns with the income of roughly $29,000 a year, or someone making about $14 an hour full time. These numbers are based on a 7% fixed interest rate mortgage of 30 years, and the payment includes the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, and the fees. So we also follow the guidelines of making sure that our homeowners their payment is not more than 33% of their household income to ensure that there is stability. So we partner heavily with the lenders to ensure that they also, if they're going to partner with the land trust, that they're meeting certain requirements to ensure that it's going to be affordable long term for that home buyer. And so just to take away, this is what affordability actually looks like today in Milwaukee. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about this model, is because this gives an opportunity for people that are typically priced out of buying, that are making that $14 and $15 and $17, the opportunity to get a good quality home at an affordable cost. We're going to get to that. Someone mentioned who pays the taxes, so we'll get to that in one of the slides. Next slide. So this is the heart. This really captures the heart of our model. So in exchange for the homeowner getting a significantly reduced price cost, so as an example, instead of them paying $125,000 for a home, they pay $72,000 for the home, and then they agree to limit the price at which they are going to sell that home in the future. And so the way I like to say it to families when I'm orientating families or speaking to people in the community is, you were blessed with the opportunity of home ownership, and in return, you agree to bless another family with that same opportunity. And so while that homeowner is still building equity, have the benefits of home ownership, they're also helping keep that door open for the next buyer. And I think that's so important because we're in a time right now where so many people want to push division, and this model really promotes community. It really promotes that, hey, I am going to look out for my fellow Milwaukeean. I want to make sure that they also have the opportunity to be able to get into home ownership and also have a good quality home. And so it's not just a transaction. This is a commitment to community and long-term affordability. Next slide. So how does this work? So you know that you have to limit the price for which the buyer can sell the house for, but how do we calculate what the max is of what they can sell that house for? So this is a basic resale formula that we use of simple interest of 1.25% to determine how much the home can appreciate over time. So we looked into some numbers, and houses in Milwaukee typically appreciate about 2%. So we wanted to ensure that the homeowner walked away with something, but also it still remained affordable for that next buyer. So what this means is each year the home increases in value at a steady, predictable rate rather than following the full market. It allows the homeowner to still build equity and gain value, but also keeps the home affordable for that next buyer. And so instead of prices rising rapidly and becoming out of reach for some buyers, this formula creates a balance, which is important, where homeowners benefit, but the opportunity doesn't disappear from that next buyer. And so when you tie this back to what we've been talking about earlier, it's really about making sure that homeownership isn't just a one-time opportunity, but something that can continue to be passed down and sustained over time. Next slide. Click it just one more time so it can bring the rest of the slide. Thank you. So this is a slide of an example of how the numbers work. Okay, so in this scenario, the homeowner purchased the home at $72,000. Over 10 years with our 1.25% simple interest formula, the home appreciated to the max resale price of $81,000. From that $81,000, we obviously are going to subtract closing costs and how much they should have paid off over that 10-year amount of time. And we estimate them paying it off about having left about $59,430. So that leaves the homeowner with about $19,130 in cash to walk away with. Now, this is just an example, but in reality, our homeowners also receive grants. While they're not guaranteed, 100% of those who do qualify have received between $5,000 and $20,000 in grants. And if that homeowner, as an example, received $10,000 in grants at purchase, they start with automatic equity, making their final cost out potentially higher after the mortgage is paid. So in short, the final amount depends on if they receive grants, how much equity they built over time. So it could even be more than this example that we're giving. Next slide. Stewardship. One of the reasons I love this model so much is because of stewardship. And that's because I was the first buyer in my family. Neither one of my parents owned a home. And so just navigating through home ownership, and it's easy to get in the door, but it's very difficult for a lot of homeowners to stay in their homes just because a lot of times they don't know where the resources are. They're not sure how to go about certain things when things come up. And so I believe in stewardship so much. And this is how this model, I really feel like this holds the glue together when it comes to this model, because we're not only getting you in the door, but we're making sure that you stay in there. And so we support our homeowners both before they buy the home, after they buy the home. And it's just about, not just about them getting the keys, but helping them to thrive long term. So we focus on the homes, making sure that they're high quality when we're producing the units, or when we're partnering with other organizations, making sure that there's energy efficient items in the home, which means lower costs down the road for that homeowner. And then there is the organization. So stewardship means that we're not just thinking about today, but we're thinking about the future, building long-term vision and affordability for the community. So when we say stewardship, we mean commitment to the people, to the homes, to the community that we live around, and all of us working together to make sure that that happens. Next slide. So I know someone mentioned in the chat about taxes and how that works. So our homeowners have full and exclusive use of both. Obviously, they own the house of their home and the land thanks to the 99-year renewable ground lease agreement. So it truly, in practice, they still have the same benefits as your regular market rate buyer. They are responsible for paying the property taxes on the home. However, they only pay taxes on the home's restricted value, not the full market value. So every year that they live in the home, they only pay taxes based on what they can actually sell that home for that year. And this, so since the land trust owns the land in itself, they also don't pay taxes on the land portion at all. And so altogether, this creates a substantial tax savings for our homeowners, helping them to keep homeownership affordable and sustainable long term. And if you're a homeowner, you know the burdens of taxes and when they go up. And so no one pays taxes on the land because we are a nonprofit organization, so we don't pay taxes. And so that's because we own the land, the homeowner does not pay taxes on the land. They're just paying taxes on the house. So we've worked with our tax assessor's office and been able to separate the parcels. So there's a parcel for the land and a parcel for the house. And that's how we've arranged it to where the homeowner is strictly paying taxes on the house, to answer your question. And next slide.
L'quisha, I wonder if you might be able to answer one more question before getting into some more details. There's some questions about the interest. So can you explain a little bit more about how the 1.25 interest cap was established, and if there's room to move that around, or what is the rationale behind that number?
Yes. So as I stated earlier, when we were, well, I wasn't there, but before I got hired on, as it was explained, when we were doing research on what we would put the resale formula for, we were looking at how much do houses typically appreciate in Milwaukee. And so typically, because that's mainly where we do a lot of producing our units, they typically appreciate about 2%. So we wanted to make sure we're in a number where, hey, that homeowner can still gain some, walk away with some money at closing, but also it still remains affordable. So that's how our board came up with that 1.25% resale formula. However, there is room to change that. And that's why it's so important that we have homeowners. I always push them to serve on the board, and we have a 1/3 of different community partners and different people that serve on our board to ensure that when things do change, that we can change that formula, and that we do have the capability of making those changes. So it is not fixed at that rate. It's just what it is currently right now. Again, that can change depending on the times.
And I'll just add that I know Grace has some questions. One, I'm not familiar with the Conservancy's model in detail to give you that comparison. And then the other costs you mentioned, so the financial costs are carried by the schools. Generally, what happens is when we're talking about the resale value, generally we are capping what they can sell the house for in the future. But when the city assesses these properties, the assessed value and the actual purchase price are really, really close. They almost align. So that buyer is pretty much paying the same taxes of other properties in their neighborhood. It's just that they're in a greatly improved house that if the city took in consideration all of the improvements and the greatly improved status, they may assess that house at a much higher value. But they've agreed to kind of treat the home like as a HOA, where they only assess the taxes based on what that agreement that we have with them on what they can realize at sale. Again, because we're such a small part of the overall real estate market, right now we'll have 14 homes. Like I said, our goal is 300 homes. I don't think we would ever be a market disruptor, but it could happen, but that's not what we see happening.
Lamont, do you see that happening in other areas? So you're saying in Milwaukee, we're not a disruptor because we have such a small number of units so far compared to the full market. But if you were to grow, how does that play out?
Well, if you look at the top 25 land trusts in the country, of those 300, there's only one that's over 2,000 units. I would say the top 20 units are between 50 and 200 land trusts. So we're really not a market disruptor. I don't see that anywhere. If anything, we just help to preserve people, allow them to stay in the neighborhood that they've been residents in, and not be displaced by rising property taxes. I know everyone wants the American dream, that they're going to invest in their home and they're going to get some appreciation and they're going to sell it and it's going to benefit everyone. But that's not the reality of what's happening in Milwaukee. In Milwaukee neighborhoods that we serve, we see people invest in home ownership and for decades not be able to sell their property at what they put into it unless they sell it to a high net worth individual. So for us, I think we just want to be able to right some of the wrongs that happen with people not being able to get into home ownership. And we're talking about renters. We're not talking about traditional buyers. If you can go out there and buy a $170,000, $200,000 home, we certainly encourage people to go out there and buy in the market. But we're just really trying to serve the lower income individuals with good, stable housing.
Mm-hmm. And I say all the time when I'm out in the community, because when it's something new, you're going to always get people that are going to give you pushback or that have a lot of questions about it. And like Lamont said, this is not the option. This is a option. We have a very diverse communities and we need various different options for different families to make sure that everyone is able to get an opportunity into housing. So a lot of the families that we serve, yes, they may be able to qualify for a mortgage, but the quality of those homes are not in good quality condition to where those homeowners are not house burdened or they're not putting themselves in a condition where they're buying these homes and they're house poor. And so our model is really to not only make sure it's affordable, but to make sure that these houses are good quality and that it's not determined based on your income. I know that someone asked a question in the chat about owning the home. The homeowner purchases the home and the improvements, and we retain the land. So we own the land beneath the house. The homeowner owns the house.
And there's a ground lease document that we record at closing that outlines all of the terms. And so the model kind of works like a HOA. The ground lease tells folks what they can and can't do, how they can get capital improvement credits. They have a right to quiet enjoyment. We're not a landlord. We're not going to show up and say, hey, we saw 3 tires and some garbage in the yard, pick it up. No, they have the right to enjoy that property as they feel. The recording of the ground lease, though, does make sure that the mortgage company will have to honor that ground lease if they were to foreclose on the property. So let's say the buyer for some reason can't afford it, they go into foreclosure. We have the right to kind of put a new buyer in place. And so that's to the advantage of that buyer as well, because sometimes we'll know in a month or two that they're behind on their mortgage because we can communicate with their mortgagee. And then we can maybe find another buyer, or maybe we can work on a payment plan and say, hey, through our process of stewardship, we can say, hey, we know you're behind. We're going to pay your mortgage, this rent this month to catch you up. And then over the next 2 years, you pay us back a percentage of that and you get back on track. So I like the flexibility of being able to support the homeowner with resources and other things that are sometimes outside of the box.
Yes, and I think that's extremely important because as some of us that own homes know that once you miss 1 to 2 payments, you're could potentially lose your home. And so our homeowners have what is like a safety net. And so we're always meeting with our homeowners as that relates to stewardship, in connection with them to ensure that if they are falling on hard times, that we are able to help them and assist them with that. And I think that's important, especially for people that are first-time home buyers or just getting into home ownership and want to do that, but may want a little additional support while they do that. So we're now getting into the journey or the steps of how that works. So because it's so unique, we make sure that we orientate our homeowners. That's my job. So I meet with the homeowners, I explain the model, we go over what it means to be a MCLT homeowner. And then if the homeowner decides, yes, this is a great fit for me and my family, we want to move forward, we want to do this, I then send them over to the counseling agency so they can get HUD home buyer counseling. That is extremely important. That is in one of our stipulations for our program. And then the homeowner meets with me one-on-one. And so that's where I'm able to I'm able to put my counselor hat on again and kind of walk with them and go over all their documentation to see if they meet the income eligibility for our program. So we base our income guidelines off of HUD. We go as low as 40% AMI, but we can go as high as 80% AMI. And so I meet with them one-on-one, and if everything pans out, then we go through the process of having them meet with one of our lenders. Again, we do not work with every lender, and that is because we have certain requirements that our lenders have to meet in order to partner with us to ensure that that buyer is going to be secure, meaning like they can't give them an interest-only loan, they can't give them a balloon loan, and that, again, as we stated in the previous slides, that their that their payment or their mortgage payment can't be more than 33% of their gross monthly income. That is also included of the fee that they pay. So because we own the land and the homeowner owns the house, they pay $50 to lease the land. So that lender has to include that $50 and also the $50 of a maintenance reserve. We all know that deferred maintenance is one of the biggest reasons why homeowners lose their home, just because they can't keep up with the maintenance or they do not. So we wanted to make sure that our homeowners put a little bit to the side to make sure that they do have some level of money if they do need to make repairs on their home. And so it goes into what is like an escrow account for the homeowner. And whenever they need to make a repair or they need to fix something, they reach out to us, and then we're able to disperse those funds to get that taken care of. We partner with the homeowner to do that. And so that $100 is included within that mortgage payment of that 33%. So we connect them with the lender, and then the lender goes from there and getting them pre-approved so that they can purchase the home. Um, Based on what we have available as far as housing is concerned, we then pair them with a house, again, based on their household size. We try to do it that way. If we have more than one family interested in the same unit, then we do what is called a lottery. Um, and then once that home is selected, we go through the process of closing, and then we close on the unit, and then the homeowner moves in and owns the house. Next slide. Or if anyone has
L'quisha,
any
I'm
questions.
wondering, yeah, I'm wondering if we can just pause here. Do you think there's anything really pertinent that we need to get into these last slides, or we can just open up more for discussion for these
Yeah,
last
let's
50?
just, yeah, we
Yeah,
have
sure. Let's go. Yeah, because I see a lot of questions in the chat.
Okay, one of the most recent questions I saw in there, so we can go ahead and take the slides down. Thanks, Jai, for that. So one of the questions in the chat was about, do you have partnerships with local contractors to help with home maintenance improvements? I'm wondering if you can answer that question, but as well, LaQuisha, if you can really dive into a little bit more details of what the stewardship entails and how you're really bringing the homeowner alongside the potential homeowner and then the actual current homeowner, bringing them through the process and supporting them through home ownership, and how that might set you aside from other affordable housing models.
Yes. So one of the ways we do that is by okay, of course we have the do pre-purchase counseling, but we also do post-purchase. So once they purchase their home, we meet bi-monthly with the current homeowners, and we go over different topics like budgeting, um, family planning, different things, probate. We talk about different topics based on what they want to discuss and want to focus on. But the whole point is we're touching base with them to make sure that they're getting the education while they're still in their home. We also have partners come in to talk about home maintenance or to give demonstration of home maintenance, different contractors, different partners that we worked with in the past, and different programs that I know this previous year we had the pipe check program come in and talk about their program and how our homeowners can benefit from that. We share resources. So again, part of my biggest job or the stewardship as a whole is to make sure that they know what resources are available and they know how to access those resources. So that can entail me going over an application with the homeowner if they need that, or explaining how the program works, or partnering with that other organization and being in communication with them to make sure that they don't get lost in the tracks, lost in the pile of people, and that they're able to get pushed through so that we can get them the resources that they need for their home.
Thanks so much, LaQuisha. I also wanted to address a couple questions on here around types of units. So there was a question there about, can duplexes be in a CLT like Milwaukee or a different CLT outside of Milwaukee? And then also there was that question originally about ADUs or the recent policy change in the granny flats. So maybe a broader question for you, Lamont, if you won't mind. How has the landscape of CLT and homeownership changed throughout your work, and how has housing policy impacted that?
When you look at land trusts and how they operate, they're very different by municipalities. Some municipalities are concerned about loss of revenue. We had a question about how does that affect revenue in the community. And so some municipalities may say, no, we don't want to support that because we're concerned about lost revenues. You'll have other municipalities who will bring in a land trust to serve that middle missing housing, people who are probably not considered low income, people like firefighters, teachers who can't afford the housing because maybe housing is 300,000 to get a starter home in their community, and they only make 75 or 100,000 a year, and they can't get into home ownership. So it's different across geography for sure. And I think unit type is always different. Our buyers here in Milwaukee have shown an affinity for duplexes. We have no restrictions on duplexes. The only thing that we require is that they rent at a fair market rate, meaning that HUD gives a fair market rate that says this is how much a fair rental is. And that's usually about $1,500, which is more than the going rate for rent of our units. I think that, looking at the geography of land trusts across the country, You'll see some land trusts who are really into owning public assets. And then you'll see some who are owning like rental units. But for us, we really want to just stabilize our portfolio with single family and duplexes and probably starter homes as we see fit. But we do know that seniors want to age in place. And so one of the biggest pivots that we're going to try to make is figure out how we can get zero entry homes for our seniors and make that a part of what we do.
And just to give you guys an example of one of our homeowners, we did sell a duplex, as you guys saw on the slide when you guys were coming in back in June. And so we sold that home for 67,000. She ended up getting grants. So she only actually paid 60K for the house. And so she ended up not having to come to closing with anything. So when we talk about affordability, she rents out one of her units. That can cover her mortgage payment that she's paying, and also she has a couple of $100 left over. So her check is fully her own. So when we talked about affordability, stability, that's what we mean. We mean being able to pay down your mortgage, still have money left over, still be able to sustain yourself, and still be able to save and do those things that you want to do rather than you can't do because of your income.
And to go back to Courtney's question about the ADU units, that's entirely possible for land trusts. In fact, we've had some conversations with a municipality about doing something very similar to that, where they're looking to split a parcel and then create two units from a parcel that normally would have been one unit. So yeah, we're open to those kind of discussions and you know those little tweaks on the model.
So it sounds like there's so many incredible benefits to CLTs and MCLT in this model, especially for new homeowners, first-time homeowners, or lower middle income earners. What are some challenges to scaling this in Milwaukee?
One of
To
the
offering it to
biggest
more.
Yeah, one of the biggest challenges that developing the capital stack that's needed to produce a unit. So one, you need development capital that actually goes into the bricks and mortar of producing a unit, whether that's a rehab or new construction units. But the create a new construction unit, or it's like 300,000 for a new construction, and then you can sell that mortgage probably for 100,000. So there's still about 200,000 in development costs that needs to be considered. But then when we look at bringing in affordability subsidy, you have to dig deeper into your pockets and bring in another 25 to $50,000 to get to the affordability. And you can take that same example, it's probably smaller numbers when you look at rehabbing a property. The rehab cost is probably going to be around 250 to 300,000, depending on if it's a single family or duplex. You'll sell the mortgage, you'll get some of that back. But the biggest challenge is, one, where's development capital going to come from? So we partner with other groups like via CDC, who does this work through the city of Milwaukee and what's called the CHOTO program. They produce 5 units a year in this manner, and they were our first partners. Then there's also federal funding that may come from the federal government that trickles down to a municipality, and the city can kind of use that to develop housing if they want to. And then the third piece is that we really need philanthropic support to kind of make the model work. And unfortunately, philanthropic support is hard to come by. They support a lot of things in its current environment. They support the down payment assistance. They support folks getting basic income. They support so many creative things that some of us know that they support. But the challenge is also generally philanthropic organizations want you to develop in their neighborhoods as well, the neighborhoods that they've designated as a priority focus. And so we've had some challenges where there's opportunities to acquire property, but we don't have a philanthropic partner, or we have a philanthropic partner, but no opportunity in that geography. So those are the biggest challenge I think we've had to overcome. And the other is just people understanding the model. We talked a lot, and we actually strip down our presentation, our homeowners get a more robust presentation. And even other partners, we probably could have talked for another 20 minutes about how this model works. So if anyone feels compelled and would like to learn more, one, we keep a regular newsletter. You can become a member through our newsletter and learn about this model. And two, we have an annual membership meeting once a year where we update members who can join for only $1. You can get access to our meeting, and also be one of the people that help determine who our board looks like. So there's a lot of opportunities for learning, and we look forward to figuring out how we can share this with anyone who's interested.
Thanks so much, Lamont. And I know you, MCLT, Community Land Trust is new in Milwaukee, and there's other areas that have been able to be a little bit more advanced in scaling the number of units they have. What have they done successfully, do you think, in this space?
You know, we haven't entered this space, but the organizations that were able to scale have been organizations that kind of control the community disposition of land. So when you think of that, think of land banks or things like that, where a community land trust is in charge of the disposition of foreclosed properties. Those organizations have been the ones who've really taken off and scale.
Thanks. And I just want to get to a couple last questions that people are throwing in the chat here. There was a question earlier about can the homeowner decide to purchase the land instead of having the land be held by the land trust? Can you talk a little bit more about this and why it's important to keep the land in the trust?
Yeah, I think for us, it wouldn't be a community land trust. Again, if you can buy a market rate home, we encourage you strongly to go out there and buy a market rate home. We've been able to serve people who make as little as $25,000, as on the high end, probably around $55,000. So it's a pay it forward model. If we allow, and see, this is what happens generally with affordable housing, is that all of those sources that I briefly touched on go into developing a unit of housing. And then in 10 or 15 years, that buyer sells that house, and it's great for them. They gain a lot. Let's use our example that we talked about. If L'quisha's buyer had bought a market rate home at 125 and not at $72,000 under the land trust model, and stayed in the house in 10 years and was able to sell that home for 200,000 in 10 years, that buyer would have appreciated a nice pretty penny, but the next buyer wouldn't fit the demographics of that neighborhood, because to be able to afford that $200,000 mortgage, you may need to be a six-figure income person. And we're not serving those communities. We're really serving. We're in neighborhoods that have been long disinvested, and people have stayed in these neighborhoods for a long time. So we want them to have an opportunity to buy a home in those neighborhoods that they've been renting and also anchoring for a long, long time.
Yeah. And I always like to say this model is not, we are targeting a specific group of people. So I know we have a lot of talk where, because we are a lot of times producing units in communities where there is some distrust. And so this is a new model. And so a lot of people are a little bit apprehensive because they're like, hold up, wait, you guys own the land. We own the house. There is a little pushback with that. And I always say, this is a model for someone that would be renting, that would not have the opportunity to get a good quality home at an affordable cost. This is to give them the opportunity, the people that don't qualify for Habitat's income because they make their minimum income is 35,000. We're able to go lower than that. So this is for your untypical buyer that typically would have no hope of becoming a homeowner. We want to be able to give them that opportunity. So to give you an example, we recently sold a unit in August to an elderly Miss Gray. She was falling in her home and she couldn't walk up all the stairs, and she sold her home and she didn't have enough funding or she didn't recruit back enough to be able to buy a good quality home because she only received back $63,000 after she sold her home. And so what about people like her? They deserve good quality housing. They deserve good quality home, and it shouldn't be priced at based on their income. So we're trying to serve those individuals, sort of say the underdogs, the people that are typically counted out. And so we were able to, the unit, we originally priced it at 68,000. We even brought the price down to what she can afford. Well, what can you give us? And so this model is truly not just saying we're here to provide affordability and permanent affordability, but we're actually putting that into dollars. We're actually saying, okay, what can you afford? What can you give us to purchase this unit? And making sure that she does have a good quality home at an affordable cost.
Thanks so much, L'quisha, for explaining that more and giving a real-time story of how this is affecting families and individuals in Milwaukee. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining today. Thanks for all your feedback. Thanks again to the Office of Community Engagement for putting this on. L'quisha, Lamont, thank you so much for all your time dedicated to this work and working with our team. We have a note up there to please join us on April 22nd for the next Community Engagement Spotlight session. And we also have that QR code that you can access on the previous slide. The MCLT website, where you can learn more about the membership, being in the board membership that, or the MCLT membership that Lamont mentioned earlier, to have a decision-making power in the group, as well as where to donate and find more information about the two of them. Thanks so much, everyone.